right, thank you, Chief, very much. And just to play a caveat to that, I do have a few people I want to thank you guys. It takes a lot to put this together, and it wouldn't do us justice to not recognize these folks. So I want to recognize our committee: Erica, Armida, Ashley, Hillary, Jeff, Kayla, Megan, and Zach. As Brian said, they put in 18-hour days just yesterday. Nobody complained. They all put in the work. I don't know if Will's going to tell the story about his flight, but Zach did have to drive all the way to St. Louis, waited, there was an issue, and then he drove all the way across the state of Missouri, picked him up in Kansas City. I think he got home for about a 20-minute nap last night before he was back here helping us park fire trucks. So if we could give the Columbia Memorial Stair Climb Committee some recognition. Additionally, it takes a little bit of money to put this on. We try to donate some to our local community as well, and we've got some really good sponsors for that. To recognize our chief sponsors, which we absolutely could not do this without them. Mawkins Dealerships, they've been with us since the very beginning, and then First Responder Support Network, they jumped in as soon as they got established, and they've been as chief sponsor for us ever since. So our chief sponsors, let's give them a hand. Some other notable sponsors: Coons Glass, Burr Oak Photography, Megan Sander with Iron Gate Realty, and then Midway Golf and Games, Simple Solutions Fitness, Club Car Wash, Hemi Construction, Crystal Himmelgerd from Flat Branch Home Loans, and then Iron Gate Real Estate altogether. Big round of applause for all of our sponsors. Thank you so much. One other thing I want to talk about this year is that we unfortunately have to add to the number of responders that we're climbing for. As most of you know, in addition to honoring the 422 first responders that died on September 11th, we also honor our local line of duty deaths. And on July 8th of this past year, Assistant Chief Matthew Tobin of the Boone County Fire Protection District was tragically killed while rescuing victims from floodwaters right here in Columbia. Today, we add Assistant Chief Tobin to our local line of duty deaths, bringing the total number locally to 13. Today, as you climb, please keep Chief Tobin, his family, in your thoughts and prayers. Honor his courage and his sacrifice. The 422 first responders that died on September 11th, the ones that brought us all together here 9 years ago, they all had a story. And unfortunately, they don't get the opportunity to travel around and tell their stories. Many of their brothers and sisters, though, who responded with them that day and narrowly escaped death, they do get to travel and continue to tell their story. One is here with us after being buried and trapped for 13 hours. He was rescued from the rubble, and he traveled all the way here from the East Coast. I'd like to introduce Port Authority Police Officer William Menno.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thanks for being out here. My name is Will Jimeno. I'm a retired Port Authority Police Detective with the Port Authority Police of New York and New Jersey. For those that don't know who the Port Authority Police is, the Port Authority Police is a bi-state agency. We serve and protect all the major transportation facilities in the New York and New Jersey area. So we have the bridges, the tunnels, the airports, the PATH train, Port Newark, the bus terminal, which is in Midtown Manhattan, where I work, the busiest in the country and the busiest and the biggest in the world, believe it or not. As well as the World Trade Center. At the time, the World Trade Center is owned and operated by the Port Authority, and we had a command center there. On September 11th, I was living the American dream. I'm a kid that came from Columbia, South America, grew up in Hackensack, New Jersey, served in the U.S. Navy, came back and attained my dream of being a police officer, and I got, for me, one of the best police departments in the country, the Port Authority, because we're cops in 2 states, and we're cross-trained. So, there's always that infighting between firefighters and cops, and we're both. So we're the first responders. A plane goes down, our guys are there with ARF. So we're cross-trained, 6-month academy. Graduate January 19th of 2001 at the World Trade Center at the Marriott. We're with the 100th class, with the Centennial class. I get assigned to the bus terminal. Great time there, the 9 months leading up to September 11th. But at September 11th, literally I was living the dream. I had bought my first home in Clifton, New Jersey, 6 weeks before the attack. My beautiful wife, Allison, was 7 months pregnant now with our second child. I had a little girl named Bianca. She was 4 years old. And as most of you who love the job you do, I never thought of it as work. It was just a dream of mine. And I get up in that morning, I was working day tour, get into my truck, from New Jersey into New York at the bus terminal, walked downstairs, get our uniforms on, went upstairs, got our assignments for the day. My post was post 3-5 on the corner of 42nd and 8th Avenue. And everything was good, just a normal day. About 8:45, I kind of looked out to the corner of 42nd, 8th Avenue, and I saw one of our sergeants kind of pointing up in the air because I had an awning above me. And I didn't know what he was pointing at. And all of a sudden, I saw a shadow cover the intersection of 42nd, 8th Avenue. For those who have been to New York, you know how big an intersection is. The whole intersection went dark. I didn't think anything of it. A lot of people in the morning, and went back to doing my job. That's when our radios crackled. They asked us all to come back to the police desk. We're walking back to the police desk, came around the police desk, and one of the things I learned in the military, and this is something I want to share with everybody, always follow somebody into a bad situation that knows what they're doing. Why? Because your chances of coming out are better. That's why I always stress to everybody, train, 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 always keep training. One of the people that I admire was Sergeant John McLaughlin, one of my sergeants. I had been to several gun calls with him. He was very decisive. But when I saw his face and I saw the concern in his face, I knew something bad had happened. We walk into the reserve room. We had a big TV set on. New York 1 was on. And we see the Trade Center with a big black gaping hole and smoke coming out of it. What sets the Port Authority Police Department separate from the other departments is we were hit in 1993. So we were taught in the academy, we deal with the same things as the cops do in New York City and all our agencies on the New Jersey side. What sets us apart, we're a target-rich environment. You think about terrorists, what do they want to do? Kill as many people as they can. So just imagine George Washington Bridge in the morning, Newark Airport at a busy time. That's what they want to hit. And in the academy, you know, we're trained about that, but you didn't think it was going to happen, and it was happening. At that point, our commander of the bus terminal came in the back, said, listen up, we're going to call your names, we commandeered a bus, we're going to get there, we're going to go down to the World Trade Center to help our brothers and sisters start the evacuation. Again, we have a command center there, so our Port Authority cops were already working there with the NYPD, FDNYs were responding, EMTs, everybody was going. So we got on the bus, went down there, we got about a city block back. So for those that don't know the World Trade Center, it's Vesey Street, the West Side Highway, Liberty Street, and Church Street. Those are the 4 blocks that encompass it. We stopped a block from Vesey Street, got off the bus, and I never thought that I would see what I saw that day. War here on the United States soil. As I stepped off the bus, it was just Armageddon. And all I could see was the big black gaping hole and the corner of the second tower on fire. So in my mind, I thought, okay, the plane hit, deflected, caught the second building on fire. What we didn't know was when we're en route from Midtown Manhattan to downtown, the second plane had hit. And I gotta tell you, that day was tough because as I'm standing there, right, we all put on our uniforms, we put on our gear, we think we're invincible. The reality is we're not. We're human beings, and no matter how tough you think you are, the world is bigger. And on that day, unfortunately, these cowards, as I call them, the terrorists, attacked innocent human beings who were just trying to live their lives. And I remember thinking to myself, here we are with our uniforms on, we gotta get up there, but all we could see is people unfortunately jumping. People were jumping, holding hands together by themselves, and they would fall and disappear behind building 6. And as a first responder, you just felt hopeless. Finally, Sergeant McLaughlin came running up through this debris field because there was nothing from Vesey Street toward the Trade Center, was nothing but a destruction. And he came running up and I said, guys, I need guys that know how to use Scott Air Packs. 3 of us volunteered. We had just graduated the academy. Myself, Dominic Pizzullo, Antonio Rodriguez said, well, we know how to use the Scott Air Packs, because some of the guys had not been trained in a while. So at that point, we came a team of 3, and we started running toward the buildings. And I say this especially to the young kids here today. Where does courage come from? Courage comes from overcoming your fears. And I gotta tell you, I was scared. I was 33 years old, I was in the military, I thought I was a tough guy, but I was scared. Running toward these humongous burning buildings with body parts, pieces of plane, and all I see is the rest of our guys staging, more FDNY behind staging, and it's just us. But I remember something, our oath, the oath to serve and protect. So we moved forward, we got into the buildings, we put on our air packs, our Scott Air Packs. Antonio put on his bunker gear, just like you guys. Me and Dominic, the bunker gear, there wasn't enough for us. And at that point, we started our rescue operation. Went down to the police desk, got a mail cart, filled it with more equipment, Scott Air Packs, axes, whatever we could. Came upstairs. So the World Trade Center was 2 large buildings connected by a concourse level, a mall level. We had path train escalators, the escalators down to the subway, and lots of stores and restaurants. And we came up and started walking. There was about 2 inches of water on the deck. And I remember as we passed an FBI agent, and there was a steady flow of people coming out. And the one thing I want you to remember as you climb today, the one thing I saw the most on 9/11 wasn't the horror or the death, it was the love. Civilians coming from Tower 1, helping each other in a single file line. Mind you, now there are people who are dead, there are people injured, and I remember seeing a black gentleman with a white gentleman carrying this woman, a blonde woman who had a severe cut on her leg, and they're holding her in a single file line and they're walking out. And I thought to myself, if these civilians can be this brave, us in uniform, we gotta be 3 notches above them. We started going, and we could have went to Tower 1 or Tower 2. My sergeant said, let's go to Tower 2. Again, not knowing Tower 2 was in distress. We went to Tower 2. The guys went downstairs to another E-room, an emergency room that are set up throughout the World Trade Center, get more equipment. Sergeant McLaughlin told me to stay with the equipment, and I stood there. And as I'm looking through the big glass doors into Tower 2, the lobby, unfortunately, I see people who are dead. I see people who are injured. I could see our cops, NYPD, on the other side toward Liberty Street, literally taking their weapons and firing at the glass to break the glass so more people can get out. But as I'm standing there was the sound of concrete hitting, and I could see it, and unfortunately the sound of human bodies, and I could see them. And again, I've had that fear come over me. And that's when another officer, Bruce Reynolds, walked up to me from the George Washington Bridge. He was a senior guy. Shouldn't have been in the buildings. Bruce was a short black guy, bald. He was sweating, he had a Scott Air pack, walked up to me, said, Reynolds, GWB, George Washington Bridge. I said, Jimeno, BT, bus terminal. And you know what that senior officer said to me? He goes, you know what, kid, it's gonna be a long day, but we're gonna get a lot of people home. And that's our goal, is to get as many people as we can. He departed. Unfortunately, he lost his life. He went to the command center of 2. That's where they found him the following February with a bunch of firefighters. That's the last time I would see him. At that point, the rest of the team came up. We started walking back down this hallway, and it was a miracle. We went halfway down the hallway, we bumped into some FDNY firefighters. My sergeant said, hey guys, be careful. I just came up from the B1 level. The elevator shafts are buckling. So as we know, if your base is not strong, that's not a good thing. And it was a group of firefighters and 1 EMT, I remember. They started going their way, we were about to push off, and there was a doorway to our right. That's when the radio went off, and our inspector asked Sergeant McLaughlin, where are you guys at? So he started telling them. That's when we heard a humongous boom. So I turned around from where we came, from Tower 2, and I looked into the lobby again. And it was a fireball the size of my house. And I'm standing there. And remember when I told you, follow somebody and knows what they're doing? At that point, I grabbed my helmet, and I'm holding it, and it's just like an earthquake. I don't know what to do. And that's when Sergeant McLaughlin said, run toward the elevator. There was an elevator, a freight elevator right there. So we started running. Dominic ran in, I ran in. I could see my sergeant running behind me. And as I look, I could see the lights flickering. That's the first time I said, Will, what did you get yourself into? The lights are flickering, I can see brown stuff. What I know today is the building coming down. And at that point, I started to turn following Dominic, and something picked me up, threw me back, and I'm just getting bombarded with debris. So first, a line of defense for us is our communication, right? So I grab my radio, I start yelling 813, which is our code for officer down. We're getting bombarded, something hits my hand, I lose my radio. Grab my helmets, just like the helmets you're wearing. I had a chin strap on. Something hit me so hard, it ripped the helmet off my head. At that point, I'm just covering up, and before you knew it, it sounded like, honestly, I always say it sounds like 2 million freight trains just coming down on me. And then after a little bit, it was silence, and we're in the pitch dark. A little while later, I could see about 30 feet up, a hole is above us. And I could start seeing light coming in. And as I can see, all I see is concrete around me. I literally have what I know later is literally a wall fall on me and actually crush me from my armpit here all the way down my left side. When I look, Dominic is buried to my left in a push-up position. I can't see Sergeant McLaughlin. He's about 10 feet on the other side, full of concrete. He's actually stuck in the first collapse. And at that point, he says, sound off. I said, Jimeno. Dominic said, Pizzulo. And then we didn't hear the 2 fellow officers that were with us, Antonio Rodriguez and Christopher Amoroso. At that point, we realized we just lost 2 brothers, 2 cops, 2 fathers, 2 sons, 2 Americans. And we didn't know what happened. But again, going back to knowing your job, Sergeant McLaughlin saw something that I didn't. As the towers are coming in, it's pushing debris in all different directions. He actually saw the wall of debris coming toward us. So what he thought, what do they do in the Middle East? They'll blow something up, they'll let the first responders come in and kill them again. So he thought it was a car bomb. We never knew the towers had come down. So that saved us. But as time progressed, it got worse. And it got really, really bad when the second tower came down. I thought I was gonna die. I made my peace with God. I actually do this to my wife and my daughter. You guys know what this means? It means I love you. So at that moment is when I thought of my family. I thought it's over. So I crossed my hands over my chest. I figured if they find me, they would let my wife Allison know this is how we found them. So she'd know at that last minute I was thinking. Because up to that point, it was always about the people in the building. It was about my team. And at the very end, then you think about your family. Because we have a job to do as first responders. Because people are relying on us. But at that point, when the second building came down, unfortunately took Dominic's life and left me and my sergeant fighting for our lives. And it was really, really bad. They made a movie called World Trade Center by Oliver Stone about us. You can watch that to get more into detail. But in those hours down there, it was really tough. I wanted to give up many times. We were suffering from compartment syndrome. Our bodies were swelling up. And a lot of bad things happened down there. We had a gun go off because Dominic was trying to shoot his gun. He shot one round before he died as a last-ditch effort for somebody up there to let us to know that we were down there, and he passed. Somehow the gun cooked off. Then we had the fireballs come in. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a cop. I admire the firefighters. I want nothing to do with firefighting. I hated that part of the Port Authority. I'm comfortable around 8 bad guys. But at that moment, just imagine being stuck, and now these fireballs are starting to fall into this hole. And they kept rolling over, and they started burning me. And I thought I was gonna, burn alive. Somehow, some way, they put themselves out. So we suffered for the next 10 hours. We were just suffering down there, and we kept each other going. And that's what I want you to think about today, is this part. When you're climbing today, when you think you want to give up, there was a point that evening I wanted to die. I wanted to give up. And I made my peace with God. I'm Catholic, and I made my peace with God. I said, God, thank you for 33 great years. Thank you for my family bringing me to the greatest country on earth. Thank you for my beautiful wife, Allison. 4 years of my little girl. I said, the only thing I'm going to regret is not being able to see my newborn child. And I said, God, I'm going to ask you for 2 favors. One is to let me see my little girl be born, because she was due in December. And I said, the second one, and you can laugh at this, I said, man, when I get to heaven, because I felt everybody's going to heaven because they were attacked by these cowards, I said, God, just let me get a glass of water, because we were caked in concrete. I was so thirsty. And I closed my eyes. And I tell people, you can think of whatever it is, but it was a dream, a vision, I don't know what it was, but I closed my eyes to give up, to die. Because we had already been crushed, lost teammates, was burnt, like I said, just crushed. And at that point, all I see is a person walking toward me. White long robe, no face, brown hair. I knew who it was. To me, it was Jesus. And what does he have in his hand? And you can laugh at this. He had a bottle of water. I don't know if it was Poland Spring or what it was, but it woke me up out of giving up. And at that point, I realized if I give up on my family because I didn't fight hard enough to get home. I give up on my sergeant because he was buried further back. Nobody could hear him. I would have given up on America. But most of all, I would have given up on myself. Those moments in life, especially as first responders, when you think you can't push anymore, push yourself. Especially when you're trying to help somebody to get home to their families. So today, as you go climb, remember at that moment that the gear's too heavy, or you think you can't take that next step, remember that if a guy like me can come out of the World Trade Center with my sergeant, so you can overcome anything you can. We were found at 8 o'clock that night, and the cavalry came. We were literally in the epicenter. So you have the sphere, which sits right there between the towers. We were right there. We were the only 2 people to survive from underneath the rubble. 13 hours buried for me and 3-hour rescue operation. My sergeant was the last person to come out from under the rubble, 22 hours. There was only 18 of us that survived. Again, us 2, 13 in a stairwell. Jay Jonas, who's FDNY, who's a friend of my sergeant, a friend of mine. 13, including another Port Authority police officer, Port Authority civilian. The last person pulled out was Mrs. Guzman, who's a Port Authority civilian, found 27 hours later, next day, topside. So our message has always been that when evil comes knocking, they think it's gonna eradicate us. It didn't. They flew the 19th hijacker over the World Trade Center, and the state trooper was there with him. And he flew over, and he said, I hope they all die, because they wanted to show him the devastation. And that New York State trooper said, you didn't kill them all. He knew our story, that we came from the depths of hell, and we're here today. So today I want you to remember that on September 11th,
not only did first responders, but regular civilians, just like your family members, put their lives on the line to help other people. And that's what's great about America. That's why on 9/11, the terrorists failed. They lost. They brought us to our knees, and we got back up there. I had 18 surgeries. You'll see I walk with a brace. I have a hole in my leg because I had a piece of rebar. But still, this September, I'm going to be chasing elk in Colorado. So at the moment you're on this stair climb and you think you can't, you could just think of, hey man, if Will can go chase elk with a bum leg, there's no excuse that I should give. And I want each and every one to understand that as a person who's buried under there, what it means to me to have you guys here today remembering all the 37 Port Authority police officers, the most police officers lost in U.S. history, 23 NYPD, 343 firefighters, 8 EMTs, 3 court officers, an FBI agent, and the countless civilians that all they were doing was living the American dream, going to work to make their life better for themselves and their family. So today, I thank you as a first responder, as a survivor, as a brother American, that today, what you're doing today is amazing. Thank you so much, because we got to teach our young generation what America was built on, what we are. And I always tell everybody, that flag is not made out of cloth. That flag is made out of the blood of patriots. Thousands upon thousands of people from all different backgrounds that have fought, died, bled for us to be free today. So on that note, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being here. God bless you guys, God bless America, and God bless every first responder and family member who supports a first responder here in Columbia in the immediate area. So God bless you firefighters, the cops, the EMTs, the doctors, and all the volunteers. Thank you for having me today. I'll be at the end of the walk to meet and greet each of you, and I look forward to seeing you and shaking your hand, because you guys deserve it. God bless you guys.